Hello again. Golf books. We all have our own favourites for one reason or another. These are just books that I've enjoyed reading. If you choose to read any of them, you might get some enjoyment yourself. So let's get cracking and have a look what we've got. So starting off with books on instruction, where better to start than with probably the classic book of all time on instruction, and that's Ben Hogan's 5 Lessons, also known as the Modern Fundamentals of Golf. This has been reprinted many years since its first publication. You can see here the copy I have is the 50th anniversary edition, but it's really the starting point for anybody that writes a book, it would seem these days. The 5 basic areas that are discussed here, they're still really used in most golf instruction that we see today. We've got talk about the swing plane. The drawings themselves are wonderful works of art in their own right. And it's written in quite an easy style to read. Probably the only questionable piece of advice is that on Hogan's take on the grip, which is weaker than that of today. And Hogan's grip was really suited to his own tendency for a strong draw or hook. So his grip was designed to counteract that. So that's our first book. Next up, we've got... I've included it in the instruction section, although it's not really instruction in the traditional sense, and that is this book, which the cover doesn't give much away, but it is, if I can open it up, The Search for the Perfect Swing by Alistair Cochrane and John Stobbs. And this was one of the first books to scientifically analyse the swing, and it's still fascinating reading even today. It talks about the double pendulum of the model swing, and it explains that very well. And there are a number of statistics gathered during the research that are very interesting and enlightening even today, and they help in comparing today's equipment and the more athletic golfers of today with those of the 1960s. Thoroughly recommend this book. It is quite technical in places, but the things discussed make really interesting reading. So that's that one. The Search for the Perfect Swing. Next up, we're back on a more traditional teaching book, and this one is Nick Faldo's A Swing for Life. Revised and updated copy here, and this goes through a lot of the things that Nick incorporated into his swing after his work with David Leadbetter. Very well explained, and it also includes a lot of Nick Faldo's experience, or Sir Nick as I should call him, as he prefers to be called, his experience in his glittering career. So again, yes, I do recommend that one. A more recent book, but excellent advice. And finally, in the instruction section, I've got 2 books by Tommy Armour, another great from the classic era. Both are considered classics on golf, and both are still worthwhile reads. The Round of Golf offers excellent advice on preparation for a round and the thought process in playing, strategical tips rather than technique tips. Play Your Best Golf is more about technique. Very good advice in there. A lot of it might be considered outdated now, but for us classic golfers, what better book to read and to model our swings on. So that completes the books on instruction. Now we'll look at a few biographies. And the first of those was one that was recommended to me on the Classic Golf YouTube channel, actually. And that one is Ripening Hay by Alex Hay. It's a joyous read telling the story of Alex's life in the golf industry through the classic years, from his time working at Ben Sayers through to his work at the BBC. A book full of great stories and personalities, and some very nice pictures in there too. Definitely worth a read, that one. Next up we've got Sheridan of Sunningdale. It's not easy to find this one these days, but it's well worth hunting down. James Sheridan was born in 1885, and this book offers us a window into that golf from another era. He recalls the greats of the day, when the gutty ball was still in use, and he was appointed caddy master at Sunningdale sometime around 1911 and remained so for almost 60 years. And as you can imagine, he's got much to tell of those bygone times. Oh, Sheridan of Sunningdale, well worth hunting down. Finally, in the biography section, we've got a book by Henry Cotton, This Game of Golf. This is part autobiography, part instruction, part personal reflection, but they all combine to make this a brilliant read. There we've got some instructional pictures talking about his own experiences playing, how he met some of the greats of the day. Walter Hagen's shown there, going through his personal achievements. So yeah, a really good book, and this one can be found quite easily. It's sold pretty well, and so there are quite a lot of copies out there. Right, that concludes the biographies then. Now on to collections. First of these is by the great Bernard Darwin. There are lots of collections of his articles, primarily because he was a writer for newspapers and periodicals, so his articles tended to be pretty short. I've picked this one from my limited collection. Bernard Darwin was regarded as one of the greatest writers ever on golf and sport in general. He seems to have slipped from the limelight somewhat today. Maybe his writings are considered too old-fashioned or not relevant to today's games, but they're still a sparkling read with great humour as well as great drama. So that one is Golf Between Two Wars. And second up in the collection series, we've got Get Into the Dance Floor by Al Barkow. In 1984, Al Barkow realised that many of golf's pioneer professionals were sadly passing away and taking with them their knowledge and experience of the early professional tour in America. And so he began a series of interviews from the characters from those days and amassed a unique collection that brings to life those characters and the hard times that many of them lived through. I thoroughly recommend this book. It's a great read. Not too difficult to find either. Right, now let's have a look at some classics. The Game of Golf by Willie Park Jr. The first golf book ever written by a professional golfer. It covers every aspect of the game, from the clubs and balls to styles of play and instruction, from competitions and how to handicap golfers to the actual laying out and maintenance of a golf course. The original copies are expensive, but it has been reprinted over the years. As you can see, this is a new reprint. If you want the original, you'll have to pay quite a bit of money, but the reprint that I've got here was very cheap, really, for what it tells us about golf at the turn of the previous century. So, The Game of Golf by W. Park Jr. Next up, we've got this one, Golfing Memories and Methods by Joyce Weathered. Joyce Weathered, one of, if not the greatest women golfers of all time. In fact, Bobby Jones described her as possibly the greatest golfer ever, male or female. This book goes through Joyce's experience playing golf, and it was published, I think, in 1935, so about the end of her amateur career, and going on to the time when she stopped playing competition golf. Where have we got the dates? Sure, there's a publication date somewhere. Oh, there we are, 1933. So coming towards the end of her amateur career, but very good book. Good copies are pretty expensive. As you can see, this one is a very well thumbed copy, but I only want the books for their reading content really. I'm not interested in having a pristine copy. If you are, then you might have to pay a little bit more. Last one in the series is again a very early book on golf, Golf by Horace Hutchison. And this was brought out for the Badminton Library. Again, this is a reprint. What can we say about this one? It's a very thorough study of golf at the end of the 19th century, giving its history, instruction, etiquette, discussing famous golf links and golfers, before closing with rules and technical terms. So again, gives us a real picture of what golf was like at the turn of the end of the 19th century. And finally, I'm going to finish on a book discussing the history of golf. I don't have many modern books, but this was a very recently published work, and it's extremely well researched, and it's a fascinating history and look at how golf began very slowly in England before exploding in two phases in the mid-1880s to the start of the First World War. And it discusses the contributing factors that combined to make the boom happen. And it was a boom both in the number of golfers and the number of golf clubs. If you like statistics and figures, this is a great book for you. And even if you don't, the points made, the thoroughness of the research and everything make it a book well worth getting hold of. The Great English Golf Boom. So there we go. That's a very quick look at some books. If you've got any recommendations yourself, please put them down below in the comments section. For many years, golf books have been a very popular collecting area, and prices have reflected that, with the most sought after books fetching very high prices, and even fairly common books relatively expensive. But the last 5 or 6 years have seen quite a fall in the prices of books, so now will be a good time to start collecting. Well, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.